This is the Final Round Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt. Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this edition of the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast, episode number 95 on deck tonight. And glad to be back in the studio, got everything put back together and working the right way. Jason is joining us from the home studio. He's back there. There he is. And we've also got Jeff Jackson joining us for this episode, so appreciate everybody tuning in and making some time to hang around with us here on the Final Round. Jason, it was a pretty good racing weekend. There's lots of stuff to get to. I know that you wanted to hit on, and we've also got Jeff joining us tonight. So what's been new with you?
Well, I guess overall, coming off of a weekend at Empire this past weekend where they had the Pro Mods at Empire. They had the Northeast Pro Mod Association. I'd say it was a really, really good show. A lot of fans there. It was a late night. Funny. I guess the funny story is the fact that I had the Corvette out. Decided we were going to take the Corvette out, just do some bracket racing and have a little bit of fun. And it got to the point where there was a bunch of things that wasn't Empire's fault with regards to delays. I'm not saying that they couldn't have potentially run the program a little more efficiently, but we had rain. We had sprinkled at one point in time, so we had a rain delay. They had a long, I guess I'll call it an oil down. Someone spit a soft plug out or something like that. Had antifreeze all over the track, and so it got really late. And I told Bill Herndon, I'm like, just so you know, if I lose first round, I'm not buying back in. It was like 7 o'clock at night at this point. I'm like, I've had enough. I'll just pull in. We'll load up and go. And going down the track, and as we went through the finish line, I looked at my wind light, and I saw my wind light come on. I was like, oh, no. So, because at that point, I knew that I was stuck, essentially going to be at the track for another 3+ hours waiting for them to run. I was in box, letting them run a round of no box, and then buybacks for box and no box as well. And we ended up running second round at around 11 o'clock at night. So it was a long, like I said, it was a long night, but like I said, it was a really, really good show with the Pro Mods, and I hope they have those guys back.
And was that just a night where you got to race the car? Just got to be a regular racer, or did you have to collect money and do payouts and all that other stuff too?
It was just me bracket racing. So I mean, it's nice from that standpoint. Just having fun going out, and let's call it a test session, if you will. Just go bracket race. I didn't have to do anything other than just go be a racer. Now, like I said, I wish it would have been wouldn't have been such a long program, but it was a good show. I mean, the Pro Mods, they were obviously only running 8th mile, which pretty much everybody does these days. But I mean, they were running 360s at 205, 208 miles an hour. I mean, they were really, really hauling.
Wow.
Like I said, it was an extremely good show, and the number of fans there, it was incredible. I can't believe how many fans they had there. So I would. If no one has ever seen a good Pro Mod show that potentially watches this, and I'm guessing everybody that would watch this show probably remembers the old Empire National days, but that's kind of what it took me back to. It was a good race.
That's cool.
But yeah, it was just fun. And I will say after that, we came back this week, and I've been talking about this, and Jeff Jackson's not going to be very happy to hear that, but I started the car up last night on methanol.
Uh-oh. Oh, Jeff. Jeff, did you hear this?
Okay. Well, that's okay. That's his problem. He'll have to deal with the aftermath of that later.
So what?
So my buddy Chris Scarlotta, he's like, hey, I got a brand new, basically spare methanol carburetor. If you want to try it before you commit, he's like, I'll bring the carburetor over. I ran it my dad's car. He goes, it was exactly the same as the carburetor that we have on it now from a performance standpoint, and you can give it a try and just see how it is. And again, if you like it, then we'll go ahead with it. So I went over to Phil's yesterday, and drain the fuel out, drain the fuel lines out, made a couple of new fuel lines going from the regulator to the carburetor, and yeah, started right up on methanol. And I will say, Phil was a big skeptic. He wasn't liking the switch to methanol, but he was, I guess, surprised that it started right up. And he's like, it sounds great. And so we'll see. We're going to hopefully go out this weekend at Empire. They have what they call their Gold Cup, so it's a nostalgia race essentially at Empire. And but in addition to the nostalgia race, they're going to have a box and no box race too. So we're going to take the Corvette out and make a few passes on methanol and see what it does.
Wow. Jeff, well, so you said this is going to be his problem now. Give us your honest take on methanol.
I don't know. To me, it's corrosive. It eats all your hoses and lines out, and I don't know. It's just a lot of work for the amount of money that you might save. And plus, you're using either, twice as much or 2.5 times, depending on your situation. So I don't know. I can't see a big savings.
Huh. Well, there's that.
In theory, with methanol, so in theory, and we'll see, right? I don't know for sure. I've never run methanol before, but in theory, you're going to run, according to Chris Scarlotta, I'm going to run 1.5 times the amount of methanol that I am compared to race fuel. Now, I don't know whether it's 1.5. I mean, generally the rule of thumb number is 2 times the amount, so we'll see. At 2 times the amount, right now, a drum of methanol is $225 at Empire for 55 gallons. So it's around, let's call it $5 a gallon that you spend. So if it was 2x, you'd spend $10 for methanol versus what I'm paying is $16 a gallon right now for racing fuel. That in of itself, I mean, yeah, it's not enough of a savings really to, make me really change, if you will. Now, in theory, it should make more power. Everybody I know has gone to methanol has made more power. And when you have a little tiny motor like I do, not like Jeff Jackson, but like I do, that only makes 650 horsepower, 20 horse pickup is a considerable amount for my little motor. So if I get that too, that would be nice. In theory, again, we'll see. It runs cooler than gasoline does. I guess I'm not totally convinced that it runs that much cooler, but we'll see. Overall, the maintenance from what I've seen and what I've been told is really not that much more compared to racing fuel. But I will say
you got to think, Jason. You only race 4 times a year, so how much are you really saving?
I was doing the same math, Jeff. I was doing the exact same math. It's like, so you're measuring all that out. If you're using 1.5 times the amount of race fuel, you're going to be burning 6 gallons of methanol this year.
Right,
well,
right.
The thing is,
especially since I lose first round all the time, right?
Well, you got to figure, let's just give him the average. Let's say he makes it to the third or quarters or wherever. Okay, so he goes 12 rounds in a year or 20 rounds. I mean, how much are you going to save?
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be, I don't think, a significant savings unless I start racing a heck of a lot more or going a heck of a lot more rounds than what I'm right now.
Well, that's cool. And this is on, you said this is on the Corvette, right?
This is on the Corvette. Yeah, I don't know. I won't say that Phil, I don't want to say never, but, hell freezing over and Phil switching to methanol probably are about the same chance.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
well,
so we'll see what happens. I don't know.
He's just letting you experiment in your car before he spends any more money.
I missed that.
Go ahead.
Oh, so I was just saying that, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm going to give it a try, and we'll see what happens here. I mean, yeah, overall, I don't know. I like trying different things, I guess. I'm, what is it? The variety's the spice of life.
Yeah, but you can't go wrong with tried and true, when it runs dead on all the...
So
I would say,
Jeff, I'm gonna venture to say that perhaps you had just a regular race fuel combination in the car that picked up the win Friday. last month rather, over at Woodburn, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, we ended up. This year's been kind of a hectic year for me, or whatever, and I've been racing around in the Northwest. Been tough. Seattle was our first division race, and they had a rain out on Friday, so there was no qualifying. We had one qualifying pass on Saturday, and they ran the whole race Saturday because of rain on Sunday, and so that was an ugly deal for me. And because I've been thinking about a new tune-up for my car for a while, and I put it in motion there, and it just wasn't going to happen. And so I had to put the old one back in. I ran a hair slow at Seattle. Then I went to Yakima. We had an association race over there, and I was in the money both days on that. And then I think I was runner-up on one day. And then we ran another, a National Open, and it was just terrible out here at Bremerton. And what else was there? I had another race I went to, and I don't know, it wasn't very good. And then it was all 8th mile stuff at Bremerton. It was an association race. I think I was in the money one day on that. And then I never had a chance so far, except for Woodburn, to try my new tune-up out. Then I ended up winning on Friday because it was a doubleheader. Right. And then on Saturday, I ended up in the final round. I was runner-up at the shootout. So I took the most money out of Woodburn in my class at that race. So I feel pretty happy about that.
So this new tune-up, this new combination, is it going to stay? Is this something that you want to continue to fine-tune, or have you found exactly what you were looking for?
Well, it's absolutely stellar, because if you were to take my car runs really good. It's pretty much on kill most of the time, and
right.
This new tune-up is even better than what I had before. And you can take all my runs from the whole weekend, okay? Like say Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, those runs, and even Sunday. Take all of them, put them on the graph on the race pack. You can't tell which ones are which except for the ones I dumped on.
Wow. And
so I'm like, okay, this is a pretty good combination here. So I just need to. I'm at the point right now. I'm refining that program a little bit, and I just haven't had the time to go back out and really run the car because, my kids have been, my son and his girlfriend, they've been racing and doing well. But on my blue Mustang, my one that my son drives, at the beginning of the year, we took all the suspension off, put all the stuff that the best stuff that Caltrax has, springs, the bars and the rear shocks and the front shocks, and replaced all that stuff on that car. And so he was racing Sportsman foot braking, and he went out and the index is 12.0 as fast as you can go, and he went 12.01 right off the trailer. And he in that race, he was down at about, I think it was 118 cars. He was down to the final 4. Then they shut it off for curfew. So that was pretty successful. Then the next, or 2 weeks later, they had a Cornwell Tools race at Pacific, and he ended up. He was in the semifinals of that race, and he would have raced McKenzie his girlfriend in the final, but he just had a crappy light. So he was in the semis, and his girlfriend won the race. So she won a Cornwell toolbox and a MIG welder.
Not bad.
So it's been, our year has been successful, more or less. We're going rounds and stuff, but it's just, I don't know. We went to Bremerton, and he wanted to do, a foot brake challenge race, and he ended up blowing the transmission up. So, in the blue Mustang, and so now I'm at the point where switching that over to a Power Glide tranny brake. I'm waiting for Mark Williams right now to give me my drive line, and it's supposedly supposed to be done on Monday and shipped out. So once that's done, I can finish the car up and get him back on the highway, as they say.
So you guys are doing well. Let's go back to this new tune that you were putting in the car. Is this something that you're kind of been sitting on and sort of hatched this idea and mapped it out on paper, like when when Jason has a new idea, he makes 25 different spreadsheets to map it all out. Like, you should see the documents that he's created to map out whether he should go to ethanol or not. Is this something that you've done as well, in terms of mapping it out and strategizing it? So when you went there and finally went full bore and put it together, you knew pretty close to what things were going to be, or was this just something like, hey, let's change it up and see if this glimmer of an idea works?
Well, I don't know. I've ran this car and this combination forever, and well, back when my dad was alive, we did a lot of testing back at Woodburn, or let's say that we go to a track early and we pay for the test and tune. We'd make notes on all these changes and stuff that we did during those times, and so I go through the notebook and look at the old numbers and even though we're making a boatload more power now, it's still relative to what things are. So
right.
I go through and look at that. Then we go back and look at the race pack and try to, I got like 20 years worth of stuff on the race pack that I can, continually look at. And so it's just one thing after another. And I don't know, I've been thinking about for a while. My son, I don't know, when I do something, usually it takes like a year
Sure.
of thinking about it and putting my numbers together. And so I don't know. We just wanted to try it at the beginning of the year, and Seattle rain out really hurt us because we figured we'd get 4 passes and we could, mess up 2 of them and still have 2 to race with. And so when you got 1, it's kind of hard to, really put something together.
Right. So that being said, with this combination that you dropped in it, and I understand fine tuning and everything like that, you're making more power now than you did before.
Yeah.
Beyond just changing for the sake of change, I've got this, I've been running it forever, let's see what else we can do, we've got all this data to fall back on. Is this an exercise where you're trying to make the car more consistent, more predictable? Because, I mean, judging by what's happened up to this point, the package that you had has been, to take your own words, it's been a pretty, you trust the proven, so to say.
Yeah.
So how do those pieces align? What's the goal of changing?
Well, what happens is, like Jason can vouch for this, after you've raced a certain combination in your car for years, people have an idea what you do all the time, okay? So you're
right.
like, you're stuck in like a hole, like, let's
right.
say, and I wanted to start the year off with people not knowing what I'm doing.
Sure.
And to me, that, when you spice it up, let's face it, a lot of guys that we race with, they don't have the horsepower or the knowledge or whatever to continually change their tune-up and do different stuff. They're stuck in this. They got one program. That's what they do. It's like clockwork. You can watch what they do. And so, I don't know. I got many different programs we ran over the years, and this new one, I'm really happy with it so far, and I'm going to continue to use it and refine it just a little bit more. And like I said, it's pretty interesting. I've been successful with it. I think if I probably would have done well on Sunday if the guy went down there and just literally stood on the brakes. I mean, right, because he runs like 134 mile an hour, and he was down to 124, and he only gave me about 100th to play with, if I even had that much. And so, I don't know. He was just lucky. That's all I got to say.
I see. So, I mean, I asked that question only because trying to match that up against like an open wheel modified or a dirt modified or a sprint car, you've got your engine and transmission in your rear end, and you got that combination, but you've got all these different gears that you can change, and that's all fine and good about trying to get the power to the track. So that's part of it. But in terms of drag racing, especially when you're trying to hit particular timestamps every time through, it can get a little predictable. You know that this car is going to go through at this speed. You know this car is going to go through at this point, and you're going to get to this point, and then you're going to hit the brakes, and you're going to go through, and your numbers are going to be consistent. By changing this up, kind of like a dirt modified guy would, or an asphalt modified guy would, they change their tire compounds for different grip, different durations of runs, change their spring combination so that it can adjust to a tacky track or a slick track, something like that. This is going to change some of the predictability in terms of maybe put you out a little bit faster, maybe give you a different mile an hour.
What happens is a mile an hour, I still call this basically my slow tune-up at 1090 to... But this is my slow tune-up still. I don't want to change that because if you get too far out out there people get all weird and they get unhappy with you, then you have more haters than you could possibly handle. So
Right.
I try to keep it about 1090 at 160. Everybody's calm more or less, and what I'm trying to do is like in my class, most of the throttle stops come on about, let's say, 275 to 375 seconds. Their timers come on and off.
Sure.
I want to be more in line with what they're doing, and this way, because like before, I got a 3-stage throttle stop that I use, and it's extremely productive, and so I wanted to get my first part open like at 275 to 325. And so this way I leave with them, and they usually think that my stuff doesn't start working until later on. But when you're right next to somebody that has more horsepower than you, that becomes a problem for them.
Right. Yeah.
So especially if you're just pacing them and you're still on your program and they're like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Right. I love the head games of racing, no matter what it is. There's head games in cycling. You know what I mean? There's head games in foot races, but it's a lot of fun. Jason's nodding his head over there.
Well, Jason, if he'd come out and drove my car, he'd probably never go back to drive anything he has back there.
Not even if he had methanol in the car waiting for him when he got back.
I don't care if he had double methanol. It wouldn't matter. He'd quit all that stuff.
Well, I say, as I'm listening to all of this, it's like, all right, viewers out there, who would you rather listen to? Me, who's won like 3 rounds in the last 2 years, or this schmuck Jeff Jackson, who you got on the phone, who has multiple NHRA national event and divisional event wins? I mean, clearly, I know much better the combination that should be run than Jeff Jackson, right? So, I mean, listening to Jeff, obviously he's 100% right. I mean, there's no doubt that, when you run against guys and they have the same combination that they've run a million times and you're running against them, you know what they're going to do. And to have somebody change their combination up, or have somebody even, let's call it, in Jeff's case, where you have multiple combinations and you don't necessarily know what he's going to pull out of his bag of tricks to run against you, that's tough at times. And I'm sure we talked about it a couple of years ago, but I ran against a guy in the Western New York Super Rod Association. Everybody at this point in time, pretty much racing in super gas, I would say 98% of the guys out there have throttle stops that are set so that they turn on right after you leave the starting line. Well, this guy had a throttle stop that turned on 3 seconds into the run. So we leave the starting line, and next thing you know, he disappears, and I look in the mirror, and I'm watching this guy fall back behind me, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to let off. Well, the instant that I let off, I see the nose of his car pick up, and I'm like, oh, no, I'm in trouble. And right by me, and I was done. And that type of surprise, like Jeff could potentially do here with multiple combinations, can be huge, absolutely huge. So, yeah, again, you run the same combination over and over again. People know what you do, and now at that point in time, now all right, I'm at this point in the track, and he's 3 car lengths back, where normally when I race him, he's only 2 car lengths back. I got this race in the bag. It's over. So, yeah, doing what he's doing makes a ton of sense. To do that, though, you obviously have to know your car very well, and you got to have a lot of passes on it, too. You can't just basically pull this stuff out of a hat.
No, it takes a little time to figure that stuff out. And, back in the day when we're traveling a lot. My dad and I, we'd go to tests constantly, and that has really paid off a lot over the years. And I don't know. I tell my son now. I said, there's times that we need to revert back to old stuff. I mean, it might be 15 years old, but those numbers are still relevant today. And not unless you change your motor and you put a super big motor in there or a smaller motor or whatever, then that changes. But usually, I mean, the throttle stop, if you don't change it too much, you're pretty much going to be okay. You can figure things out from there. I'm just trying to. I'm waiting for another weekend I can go racing, and I think there's going to be another event here pretty quick at Seattle. They have I think a $10,000 bracket race that I'm going to probably go to at the end of the month. And then after that, we're off to Boise, it looks like. So I end up, since I really wasn't planning on winning, trying for a championship this year. Well, I'm in 4th place right now with just that win. And then I can't go to Billings, Montana at the end of the month because I got where I work at, we have some state inspections and some other stuff, and they're not allowing anybody else. So that was a doubleheader race, so that's probably going to hurt me. But it really depends on who wants to travel that far. So I don't know. I guess it's going to come down to Boise. If I do well there, then I'm probably off to Vegas in 2 weeks after that for for a week for a doubleheader race and see what happens.
Jeff, I mean, at this point, I mean, I realize that it's one of those things, like I said, you didn't plan on it, right? And
yeah,
I would say we've had Ben Height on previously as well, and out here in Division I land at Empire, Ben is up there in the points too. He won a national open, which unfortunately doesn't do anything for his division points, but then he won a national open and a division points race back to back. And now he's really high up in the points, and it kind of forces your hand. How many time division champ are you at this point in time?
3 times.
And I mean, is there still enough motivation there to make you say, hey, you know what, if I'm up there in the points, I got to go chase this? Or
well, here's the deal with that, okay? Our director, Matt, he made a poster of, it was on the internet or whatever. He made a poster of all the divisional champions, the top I don't know, whatever, the 3, if you won 3 or more divisional titles, you're on this poster, okay? So according to this poster, I'm in the top 20 all-time winningest drivers in Division 6. So I'm in like the comfort zone of like Jody Lang, Jeff Lane, all these guys. And my son goes, you're in the 3rd category. And I said, well, he goes, you got to get out of there. So I'm going to try to make it 4 or maybe 5. I mean, I still feel I can drive good and all that stuff. And so I want to get out of the 3 and maybe hit 4 or 5 championships. And this way I'll be in a separate category and move my stature up a little bit.
Yeah, and you clearly have a very competitive car, right? So, I mean, you know what it takes. You have a competitive piece. And I mean, I will say that, over the last, I don't know, I'll say maybe 5 years. I mean, you haven't done a ton of traveling over the last maybe 5 years. I mean, Dad was, his health was failing, and obviously he had COVID and stuff like that going on, right? So, I mean, there are reasons why you kind of stepped back from the huge travel schedule that you had before, but there's really nothing in my mind from stopping you from jumping right back in and being just as successful as you were previously.
Well, it's probably been, when I come back from Vegas and move back up north, my dad was sick then, and he was pretty sick, and I couldn't travel with him because he was not in great shape, and so I pretty much retired at that point and just put the car away and just let it sit for like 2.5 years before I did anything, and then I had my son. He ended up moving in with me, and because of some situations, and so him and I got things going again, and now that he's out of school and he's actually working, and he's got his own, we can go do things together now. It has really freed me up a little bit, especially in the last 1.5 years or so. So now I'm at the point right now of, I got a bucket list that I want to do, and I wanted to do it this year, but the gas prices have taken off, and there's just other things that are going on with work at the present moment that I can't do. But I wanted to go to like Kansas and do that double they have there, and maybe hit another one after that, and maybe go back east a little bit. But it's just you got to figure your expenses and your time and all this stuff, and nothing's cheap right now, and there's nothing worse for me than paying $4 or $5 a gallon for diesel. So it just makes me mad to have to piss away money, good money for something that shouldn't be that expensive.
It's funny. I mean, and Chris will probably get a kick out of this just because he probably realizes that auto racers in general are a very conservative Republican bunch, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it matters whether you're probably, and I could be wrong. I mean, maybe Chris can chime in here and say, oh, well, the Derby guys are distinctly different, but there is no doubt that the racers that I know, I mean, it's pretty much across the board, conservative Republicans, and yeah, right now, I mean, I don't think there's any of us that are really happy about the increased gas prices when you start talking about towing a rig across the country. It can get really expensive real fast.
Well, when you got to drop $250 a stop, to fill up, and it's only half as much as it used to be, down the road. I mean, it kind of irritating. And then you got to figure your entry fees and all your other stuff that you're doing. I mean, it's just I don't know. There's just a lot of money out there. I mean, I can afford it, but it's just the principle. I mean, I got to spend on my principles right now, and I wanted to go to Montana and do that double because that's kind of it's a little bit out of my way, but you know what? It'd be a double, and that'd be worthwhile. I don't know if you've ever been to Montana, that track out there, been in that neck of the woods, but you and I race in reasonably decent barometric pressure. Let's say 2890 to to 2990, somewhere in there. Well, you go to Montana and the barometric pressure there is like 2598 and 2610. So, I don't have an issue with that because, I got the power and stuff that I need, but, that's a race that's in your favor, guys that have bigger motors and stuff.
Did you hear that, Chris?
I heard a lot. There was a lot to unpack there. Which part are you focusing on?
Well, Jeff and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and when he said that, I was like, "What?" So the barometer there is so this is in Acton, Montana, which I'm guessing is like probably 12,000 feet above sea level or something.
It's 4,000.
It's outside of Billings, Montana. The typical barometer there is 26. So typical barometer here in Western New York is in the 29 flat range. For our barometer to get to 26, and this is not an exaggeration, for our barometer to get to 26, there would be tornadoes touching down on the ground. Right. That's how low the barometer is in Montana. It's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And honestly, I told Jeff this. If I went there and had no idea, if I were to show up and my weather station said the barometer is 26, I'd be like, this thing's broken. Can't rely upon this for this weekend.
Put it this way: if you didn't have a set of 6.0 gears in your car and a 7,000 converter, when you let go of the button, you would thought that you could have got out of the car and walked faster to the 60 than that car moved.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah, it's a severe horsepower eater.
I mean, that tow, Montana, how far is that? I mean, it's got to be far.
That's like 950 miles, roughly, from here.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly far. I mean, the crazy thing is I can't believe you'd be considering driving 950 miles to go to a points race. Well,
that's not even the worst part. The worst part, we live on the wrong coast over here, and we have hills over here. We don't have we don't have New York hills. We got mountains. I mean, we got to cross the Continental Divide, and that's like 9,500 feet or something like that. So we have to put we got to get the turbo on the diesel spooled up a little bit and actually warm the oil up to climb that hill. So yeah, no, we do some driving out here.
Good grief.
Yeah, I mean, I have to laugh at Jason because he's crying sometimes because you got to drive 200 miles to a race or whatever, and it's like 200 miles, man. I could do that in my sleep. I could probably put on cruise control, make the truck, and make it there by itself.
We're very spoiled out here in New York, and I hope that the race fans can appreciate that, because it's a topic that I've touched on a couple different times in various different programming, and the fact that we have such a dense population of racetracks here. No matter what you want, if you want karts, if you want indoor karts, if you want outdoor karts, asphalt tracks, dirt tracks, ovals, drag racing. There's a number. I think there's 3 different motocross tracks that are around here. You know, there's a lot of different options in New York just by itself. So it's not a stretch to get a couple different options within 45 minutes or an hour. And if a points race is scheduled 2 hours from your house and you got to drive past all these other venues to do it, I can see where 2 hours would be stressful because you got all these other options. The density is different.
Yeah. I wish I had that problem.
Yeah, I don't know how many drag strips you have. Let's call it within a 6-hour tow of what you're doing. I mean, for us, that's kind of the magic number. I mean, if you start talking about 6 hours, now obviously Englishtown is closed. Echo is probably going to be closed here, but when you look at, let's call it an old guy like me, and you start talking about 6 hours, you go 6 hours to the southeast. Yeah, you have Cecil County and Atco and Maple Grove, and then you go to the west, then you have Lebanon Valley, you have New Hampshire there. What the heck is where they have the NHRA event? Can't remember the name of the track there in New Hampshire. You have you go to the west, you have Dragway 42 and Norwalk and a bunch of tracks there. You have Pittsburgh. It's really amazing that within a 6-hour drive. Now again, it's all relative, right? So I mean, you start talking about the races around here, you got to drive 6 hours. That's not close by any means, but we have a bunch of tracks within 6 hours of here. And again, that doesn't even talk about Canada. You start talking about going to Cayuga or Grand Bend or London. So there's a whole crap ton of tracks that are within that 6-hour radius. You shrink it down from there and say, all right, well, I don't want to travel 6 hours. I only want to go 2 hours. There's still a bunch of tracks that you can go race at that are only a 2+ hour drive around here. So we are sort of blessed, if you will.
Well, like I said, you guys are on flat land back there, so those drives are so much easier than like when I leave here. Let's say that go to Seattle's like 25 miles, let's say, and Bremerton's about 30 on the. Going to from here, going to Woodburn, I got a few hills to climb, but they're not really hills, and that's about 175 miles. In Canada, it's about 150 miles. Go to Mission, but then you got to deal with the border, and then that's a whole nother issue. And then from there, we got Boise, which is 505 miles, and once I leave my house here, I'm climbing a hill all the way until like Yakima, Washington. Then it's a flat land for a while. Then once we get over to Eastern Oregon, we have a huge, like 12, 13 mile, 6% grade, whatever it is, uphill forever. And then we're climbing all the way until we get to the border of Idaho. Then it's flat land from there. So it's it's brutal. And then once we go south, let's say we go to Vegas or whatever, depends on what direction we go in from there. We still got to go back through Idaho if we go on the east side of Nevada, or if we go down I-5, let's say we cut through California, but that's a whole other issue there with them idiots. So there's a few towns we go through that don't like long trailers, and they get all angry. And so last year, I took my mom to Vegas for the double divisional, and I told my mom as we're going through Susanville, we pull up the stoplight, and I see a cop on the left side of the light, and I said, I bet you I don't make it through the intersection. He's going to pull me over. And I go through the intersection, the lights are on, he pulls me over, and he tries to get me for being commercial and all this stuff, and it's just a hassle every time I go through there. And so I don't know, I got to reevaluate what I'm doing when I go that direction anymore.
Well, I was saying it's not just there either. I know Florida, which is funny because you wouldn't expect it in Florida, but I know Florida is just as bad. That pretty much as soon as you cross into the border, the Florida state troopers are, pretty much sitting there waiting to see the race rigs come across the border and be over length so they can pull them over and ticket them. So it's not just California, unfortunately, but yeah,
Well, the
it's definitely a problem.
Well, the biggest thing is just not having any stuff on your trailer. If it's just white or just a plain color with no stickers and stuff on it, you're a lot better off. But it's still, they're looking for something constantly. And, my trailer's got 3 axles. If I had 2 axles, it probably wouldn't be a problem. But, just having that extra axle on there, they're just looking for anything. And so, I don't know, that kind of takes some of the fun out of long-distance traveling anymore because I just don't want to have to deal with it.
Right.
I get it.
So the double race at Montana is at the end of the month. So what's I guess what's between now and then?
Well, the weekend after that, or that weekend, is a $10,000 bracket race. But there's really nothing here. I'm kind of in limbo until that Montana race. I don't know why, but there just doesn't seem to be anything going on here except for maybe a bracket race. And I don't know. I'm not really into that right now. I'm trying to save all my stuff, so if I have to go to Vegas at the end of the year and do Boise, if I do Vegas, the double, and I do well there, I might just leave my stuff there, race the national, and do the division, the second or the third divisional there, and see what happens. So I don't know. I got a lot to think about in a short period of time.
So why aren't you into the bracket race? Just go test.
I don't mind bracket racing, but right now I got so much going. I don't know. I got so much going on right now. It's not even funny. After my trip back from Woodburn, you know how it is when you have a really great weekend and things are, you're feeling good and it's like, man, I'm on top of the world right at the moment. And I get home and unload all my stuff and I'm going through the trailer and doing this and that and. The next day I go outside and I look underneath my truck just to check it out, and I got oil on the cross member. It's like, oil on my cross member? What the heck is that? And so I'm looking around. Now I got to put a high-pressure oil pump in my truck. And then it just seemed like it was snowballing. Then, like I say, all this stuff with the kid's car, doing all the, switching the power glide over and doing the adapter and all this other stuff we've had to do. It's been eating a lot of time. So... yeah, it's just I don't know, just a one-man show, and I just got so much to do, and it's brutal.
Well, hopefully that win helped make it a little bit more worth it.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting in my chair right now, and I'm looking at my collection of Wallies here, and that one's really shiny, and it looks pretty nice. So, and it's not dusty yet, so I'm kind of happy about that.
You should probably try to put some more with it.
Well, I'm looking at these Wallies right now, and they're stacked three deep right now, and they're all the way across. So there's 3 rows, and the front row needs another one on the other side to make it look like it's even.
I see.
So, yeah, so they're just a little bit off. So I'm thinking about trying to get another one or maybe 2 more this year. That'd be awesome. So. As Jason knows, it's a never-ending battle. I mean, you got your days, and you can pull that stuff off.
Yeah, it doesn't come easy, I'm sure.
No, it's actually pretty hard. I mean, if everybody could win, everybody'd be doing it. But there's days that everybody gets, that person gets lucky and can pull it off.
Jason's pondering.
Well, he's probably due for a win one of these days, but the problem with Jason is he keeps changing too much stuff, and he needs to stick with one thing and figure it out and put it together. And forget that alcohol crap.
I would say a little practice wouldn't hurt either. Yeah, I mean, I will say that I was going back and looking through my logbook from this past weekend, and I had the delay box set, so I'm in new converter this year, right? So I like the new converter. It's looser. It's definitely doesn't hit the car as fast as the old converter. But on the Pro Tree, 510's Pro Tree, I was running I want to say I was running 105, I believe, in the delay box. And I went back and in this past weekend, my lights were not stellar. And in the second round when I lost, I think I was 28, if I remember correctly. And that was at 11, I think I was at 11:10 in the delay box. And I went back and looked at it afterwards. It's like, I probably should have taken another 10 easily out because, looking back at all the other full tree races that I had, that extra 10 in there, I didn't need to have that in there. But I mean, I just haven't run enough races at this point to really know where I'm at with the combination that I'm at, the combination that I'm running right now, and especially on a full tree. I am not 100%. I am not as good on the full tree as I am on the pro tree. I don't know why, but I must subconsciously think to myself that I got all the time in the world on the full tree, so I don't have to worry about it, and I just don't hit the tree as fast as I do on the pro tree. But yeah, I need some seat time. And second round, I had I think it was Craig Chatterton who I raced second round, who's got a dragster in the 8th mile that runs 4:30s. And I think he went 4:30 at, oh God, I want to say it was 4:30 at 100, and it was fast. 150 maybe. He came around me really, really fast. Well, I looked up in the mirror and saw him there, and I'm like, well, I'm going to hold it down to the finish line. And he ended up getting there by 6 thou. Yeah, my light was just a pedestrian 28 or something. I think he was 10, and yeah, he did a good job of taking the stripe with a 50-mile-an-hour speed difference between me and him. And yeah, you can't go. I don't think there's probably any track that you can go to these days and be, let's call it 30 on the tree in a box class and expect to win. So I need to tighten that up, and that comes with practice, and that comes with, like Jeff said, sticking with a consistent combination and not changing things. Unfortunately, the engineer in me gets bored and says, let's try changing stuff just for the sake of changing it and see what happens.
See, what you need is instead of having like gloves, like with individual fingers, you need a pair of mittens so you can't touch nothing, and a pocket screwdriver. This way you can concentrate on one thing.
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad for me to have somebody that was let's call it a crew chief, right? That just said, you just go away, don't touch anything, and we'll call you when the car is ready and it's time for you to go up and drive it. That's for sure.
Yeah, you could be like Rock Haas, and in between rounds, just make sure your hair's perfect and you're ready to go.
Right, exactly. Which all those guys, they all went out to, they go out, let's see, what's the race in Kentucky, right? Did they all go out there for the points race?
Yeah, I think I saw something on Facebook where he was on the road there or going somewhere.
Yeah, obviously India's coming up here very, very soon. And so I saw that the McMillans from Canada, they somehow, I don't know how, but they somehow had their rig brought across the border, and then they flew across the border to get into the United States, and so that they could go race a couple of races. Bowling Green, that's where everybody's going, Bowling Green. So I think everybody's at Bowling Green for this potentially for this weekend, and then maybe getting ready for Indy in a couple of weeks. So it should be interesting to see what happens here. But glad to see the McMillans out racing and that they found some way out of Canada with the lockdown. They were supposed to open the border, I think, August 7th, but with the supposed increase in COVID cases here in the U.S., I doubt that happens.
Yeah, well, that's putting a damper on a lot of stuff because I want to go to the SEMA show. In fact, I already got my tickets for the SEMA show, my son and I and his girlfriend, and got our flights and everything. And I'm kind of worried about that now because if they start acting weird, that might go down the road here pretty quick also. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. And just, supposedly the cases are going up or whatever. It's just, it's making things interesting.
Yeah, it's a different show. I'd love to hear, I guess, what Chris and his wife have to think about what's going to happen this fall with the schools, just because, my son has not done well as a remote student, even though he's done very well as a student in person. But I'm concerned now with the cases going up where they are. I'm just really praying, I guess, that they don't decide to take the schools and make them all fully remote again, because that would not be good for my son.
Well, I feel blessed that my son graduated, a few years back, and we didn't have to deal with this stuff, because I think that'd be very difficult for any kid nowadays to have to do that, because they need their social life there, and be productive citizens, talk to their friends and play and all that stuff, and all that stuff's gone now, and I feel bad for young people.
Yeah, it's been a challenge for sure. So I'm hopeful that well, I guess I'm hopeful for two things. I'm hopeful, number one, that the schools remain open, but they also do it in a safe manner. I don't want them sending all the kids back to school just because, and having hundreds of kids get infected with COVID because they felt like, oh, we need to have schools open. So, but like I said, that's probably a different podcast on Finger Lakes One, I would guess.
Well, yeah, totally. So besides converting your car over to alcohol, what's your next plan of attack?
I'm just gonna go testing and see what this thing does with alcohol, and see what happens.
Because you already put the.
What if it goes slower and you're not happy? But then what are you gonna do?
Well, then I still have my gas carburetor. I'll just put it back on gas. So, it's an easy switch. So from that standpoint, I still have the other fuel lines the two fuel lines that I made up. I kept the old fuel lines. So it's very easy to switch those back, and draining the alcohol out would be no problem. So yeah, I'm definitely not selling anything yet, for sure.
Well, I didn't know.
I got a full 5-gallon jug of VP sitting there, waiting for me to use it. So yeah, I definitely want to try it and see how this works. And I'm not. I will say, I'll be the first to admit, and Billy Lieber will tell you that I am lazy. So having something that requires extra maintenance is really not a really good thing for me to be taking on. Now, in theory, from what I've heard, the additional maintenance isn't all that much. Taking the car and pulling it into the trailer and, let's call it, starting it up with the fuel pump off and letting it just run out of fuel, and then squirting some gas into the vent tubes, into the bowls. That's not hard to do. I can do that. That's not a big problem. But if you start telling me that, hey, you know what, you need to start doing weekly oil changes and stuff like that, I'm not a good person for that. So if that's what it comes down to, then it's probably going to be time for me to switch back to racing gas, just because it won't be. Well, I can tell you right now, I just won't do it. That's what we'll get down to.
Well, you're gonna know when you've got a milkshake inside your oil pan that you need to change your oil a little more often.
Right. Yeah. I'm okay with that. Right now, the Corvette doesn't have many runs on it. I would say the car maybe has 15 runs on it. So, we'll go we'll see what this weekend holds. I'm not holding out hope. The Gold Cup at Empire is a pretty big race. So yeah. I'd be surprised if, from a time standpoint, if I was able to get more than 4 or 5 runs on the car before I tap out and say, all right, I'm done for the evening. But I wouldn't run more than a couple races at this point before I would say, all right, it's time to change the oil, just because, and see what the oil looks like. And if I put 10 runs in the car and I'm taking the oil out of the car and it's all milky white because of the moisture in it, I'm not going to be too cool on that.
Well, if you want to see something funny, pull your valve covers. That should be interesting too.
Right, exactly. Now, I do have the vacuum pump on the car now, so that definitely supposedly helps pull the moisture out into the overflow. So we'll see. So far with the racing fuel, the vacuum pump, I literally have not gotten a single drop into the puke tank. So we'll see what this does with the alcohol. Like I said, I'm really interested to see what happens. We'll see.
Well, it's good. I hope it works out for you. It's that some of that carburetor. You got the gas one. I'd would think the Smithsonian would want it back and put it on their shelf.
Well, I will say that I might, I just done a little bit of research overall, and I know you're a big fan of the Williams carburetors. And what I might do, honestly, even though I haven't sold my Demon RS, if I just do decide to go back to racing gas, I would probably call Williams up and say, hey, here's my combination. Can you build me a carburetor to replace my Demon? And then at that point, I might actually sell my Demon.
Yeah. I wouldn't sell anything. I got 5 Dominators that rotate back and forth every once in a while, and it's just kind of hard to get rid of them because they all have their little quirks, and it's kind of funny. I got some high dollar, $2,000, $2,500 Dominators and stuff, and I always go back to the Gary Williams carburetor that I paid $750 for from them 20 years ago or whatever, 25 years ago, whatever it was. That thing has always been the fastest carburetor that I can have. It's always at least 3 miles an hour faster than anything I put on.
Wow. Huh.
And it's funny because I tell myself, I said, if I die, I want that carburetor and my throttle stop to be buried with me or incinerated, whatever comes first. I don't care. I want all that stuff with me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens after that. After this weekend, like I said, just going and having some fun and testing the Corvette. Then next weekend we have a super gas race, West New York Super Auto Association race out at Empire on August 14th. And then we'll see our next race after that is where we're kind of on hiatus, kind of like you are. September, I think it's September 11th is our next. Well, that's when our next race is scheduled, but I will say that I found that Empire has a twin 10,000 bracket race scheduled for that weekend that got rescheduled from earlier in the year, so it doesn't make sense for us to be scheduled on the same weekend. So we're going to have to postpone that to some other weekend. I'm not really sure when, but we'll see. And then Billy and we talked about potentially going out to Columbus for the I guess it's the summer fling officially out at Columbus. So who knows? Maybe I'll go do that. I don't know. We'll see.
Did you do the front suspension on the Corvette, or no?
I'm sorry. What was that, Chris?
The front suspension. Did that get done?
No. We never did the front suspension on the car. I guess I'll call it Randy Jewell ran out of time. Didn't have the time to do it. So. That'll probably that'll be an off season something we do with this off season. I'm not sure. I've been thinking about what I'm going to do this off season. The engine doesn't have that many runs on it, but I'm half tempted, honestly, to take the motor out and send it back and have it freshened, just because it's been from a calendar time. It's been a long time since I've had it freshened, so. Even though it doesn't have that many runs on it, I might do that. And maybe the French suspension thing, holds off. If nothing else, if I did send the motor back to have it freshened, I will say that at that point, I would. Jansen has always done my motors. I've been doing them for 30 plus years. I'd probably tell them, hey, you know what? I'd kind of like to make a little bit more power than what I've been making, and what are my options here? And I know, 5 years ago it was you put the Dart 18-degree heads on a small block and you'd pick up a lot of power. You pick up probably 100 horsepower by doing that. Now I don't know if that's what they would recommend still today, but I would definitely like to try and pick up a little bit of power if I could. So we'll see. I'm not really sure.
What you need to do, Jason, is call Matt at MBE Cylinder Heads and have him do an intake manifold and a set of heads, and you'd probably pick up a boatload and probably scare you.
Well, yeah, and I agree. I mean, that's where really, the bottom end of my motor is all really good pieces. It's the top end of my motor that is really kind of holding me back from making power. The AFR 210 heads that I have on there, they're a decent piece, but when I bought them, I didn't want any sort of exotic valve geometry. I wanted to be able to use all, let's call it, stock valve and geometry. Valve train geometry, so that really limits what you can do. And I completely agree, Jeff. If I were to put a good set of cylinder heads and manifold on there, I know that I could easily pick up 100 plus horsepower by doing that.
Yeah, put some titanium valves in it and put some nice stuff in there, and if you do titanium valves, make sure you have them coated, because that coating, I think it's like $30-$40 a valve. It's really worth the money. I mean, I had all my titanium stuff coated, and man, I'll tell you what, when I take that motor apart, the cylinder heads and stuff, those things look like they just come out of the box. They're beautiful, and it's well worth the money to do stuff like that.
Yeah, and a few years ago, I bought an X-Competition Eliminator motor, and I thought about using that. They had a set of Dart Buick heads on it. I was going to use those, but those are really meant to be spun at 8,500 plus RPM, and it's like, it just doesn't make sense to do that these days. And so those are sitting on the shelf, and if I do something, like I said, I'll go get myself a modern set of cylinder heads that I can run at a reasonable speed and still make some decent power. And yeah, I mean, my whole thing, it's I've always been this way. It's not that I'm certainly not made of money, but I'd rather spend the right money up front and get the right pieces than make a compromise and then later on down the line have to spend more money on top of it. So just tell me what I should get, and I'll make the investment and do it and be done with it, and we'll move on in life. So we'll see what happens.
Well, that's good. Well, I hope you're making more power, because that's where the fun is at. There's nothing better than
I'm right there. I'm right there with you, and that's what I'm in here for. It's like definitely looking to have a little bit more fun. So we'll see what happens.
Well, there's nothing better when a guy's right next to you, and he's to the wood, and he's looking over you with his eyeballs they're twice as big as they normally are, and he's going, man, I got another 100 feet to go, and I ain't gonna make it. And here you are, and you're wisping the throttle, dragging the brake a little bit, and as soon as he tries to do anything, you punch the throttle. And I don't know, I love it. I love when I come up on somebody early and catch them, and I just womp the throttle a couple times, and every time, like say, I let them go past me like a half a car, then I punch it, get back on the gas again, and it'll actually pull them a car to the next time, and it's like kind of like being like on a merry-go-round almost. It's pretty funny just to watch those people. Yeah. If I could, there's a 570 class at Empire that I would like to be able to run, and I would say right now my car would probably run high 580s in the 8th. So yeah, if I could, I think obviously you pick up 100 horse from where I'm at now, I'd easily be able to run 570s. So that would be a fun class race. What's your mile an hour in the 8th?
So, it's hard to say because, I'm always on the stop. So on the stop running 640s, I'm at 640 at 113 miles an hour.
Okay.
So, I mean, and again, always on the stop, right? And leaving the line at 5,000 RPM on the chip. And so this past weekend, I raced a guy with a Mustang who he went 6.0 at 111 in a time run. And I was 640 at 113 on the stop. So, I mean, I know I could go faster than 6.0s for sure. Like I said, high 580s is my guess is probably where I'd probably be. So it wouldn't take much to get in that 570 range, but it would be a pretty significant jump overall if I were to do it, because again, I'm going to put right pieces in it. Like I said, if I do titanium valves, I would make sure they have the coating and stuff like that. So I don't want to compromise. I don't want to regret making a purchase that I made because it wasn't exactly what I needed. And honestly, I haven't raced as much as I should have. So if it gets right down to it and I have to take a year off to save the money up, well, that's what I'll do. I'll take the year off and save the money up, put the right pieces in it.
See, what you do is, since your kids aren't really wanting to go to school, make them get a job and take their paycheck for rent. And this way, you'll have some extra cash to put into your race car.
I'll tell him that when I take his paycheck from him. We expected this was kind of an impromptu show. We're right at an hour, so I guess it's probably a pretty good time to wrap it up. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, we can leave some meat on the bone for next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Next time we have Jeff on, by that point in time, he should have already gone to Montana, hopefully, and doubled up. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to go a couple of rounds with some methanol.
That'd be excellent.
I can't go to Montana, but I'm going to try to do something in Boise, and if I do well there, then I'm going to head out to Vegas for a week and do the double there, then probably come home. And I don't know, we just have to see what happens. I'm doing all right now. I got to finish up my son's car with the power glide and stuff, and do a couple things in my truck, and that'll be enough for me for the next couple of weeks. So hopefully we'll be getting some more contingency checks in here in the next month, and that'll be nice.
Nice. Well, stay in touch. Let us know how everything's going.
I will.
And
thank you. Thank you guys again, man. It was quick notice, but it's always kind of fun, chatting a little bit, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
We sure will. I
okay,
appreciate
guys, take care, man.
I appreciate it, Jeff.
Okay, buddy. Take care. See you guys. Bye.
There goes Jeff Jackson. That is going to do it for this one. Boy, we timed that right. Did you hear that beep?
I did.
That was the low battery warning, and there's no bars left in the battery. It was about to die.
Nice.
So we know that it can handle 2 hours, and that's about it. That's going to do it for us on this one, number 95 in the books. We didn't expect to have a full program tonight, but ended up here on Finger Lakes 1. Got you 2. Got all the Crash Course stuff from Monday redone. Got Facebook up and working. Got YouTube up and working. Got final round number 95 in the books. That's going to do it for this one. We're going to be back again. It'll probably be a couple weeks. We're going to be leaving for I'm going to be leaving for South Carolina on the 13th of August, and looking forward to not being around computers or school for a couple days. And unfortunately, some of the conversations at home have already started about what's going to happen with school and what's moving forward. And Alan had his first modified soccer practice tonight. So just as it seems like things are going to be slowing down, fall soccer is going to be gearing up just as fast. But make sure you keep your racing habit fulfilled. Get out there, support your local tracks, and we look forward to seeing you right back here again next time. We'll see you then. This has been the Final Round Drag Racing Podcast, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. We'll see you right back here again in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching.